From mysterious illnesses to tragic deaths, and one comedian who just can't quite seem to catch a break. Here are the top 10 celebrities who are hiding dark secrets from the world. Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have Dog the Bounty Hunter. Dwayne Lee Chapman Sr., better known as Dog the Bounty Hunter, has amassed a following for chasing down wanted criminals and bringing them to justice. But something that is little known is his dark past before he became the bounty hunter we all know today. In 1976, Dog was sentenced to 5 years in jail. He was 23 at the time of the incident and was waiting in a getaway car when his friend shot and killed an alleged drug dealer during a fight over what we'll call the business. This led to Dog's conviction as well as his divorce from his first wife, LaFonda Honeycutt. He only ended up serving 18 months of his sentence before being paroled and going on to become the man we know today. In our number 9 spot today, we have David Spade. David Spade is a comedian who has been in our lives for many years. He's known for his time on SNL, his 2003 starring role in Dickie Roberts' Child Star, or more recently his new Netflix special, just to name a few. David's quirky personality covers a past that is sprinkled with loss. David's father abandoned his family when he was just 4 years old, but would show up sporadically promising things to David and his brothers only to never show up and fulfill those promises. It doesn't end there though. Not only did David's stepdad unfortunately end up taking his own life, but so did his sister-in-law, fashion designer Kate Spade. If all of this wasn't enough for one person, David was also robbed and harmed by his assistant in 2000. His assistant broke into his home, attacked him and used a taser on him before David was able to escape the attack and lock himself in his bathroom with protection. It seems as though David just can't quite catch a break. In our number 8 spot today, we have Ringo Starr. One quarter of the Beatles, Ringo Starr of course was rocketed to superstardom along with the rest of his bandmates, but prior to this life, he had quite a scary and rocky time that meant things could have gone quite differently for the musician. Earlier on in his life, Ringo found himself with appendicitis. After this, he then contracted peritonitis, which put him into a coma. Eventually, he thankfully woke up, but this wasn't the end of his health struggles. His condition meant that for the next year he had to stay in the hospital. During his time here, he then went on to contract tuberculosis, which caused him to have to add another 2 years onto his hospital stay. That would be an absolute whirlwind of things to have happened to you. It seems as though there might have been something larger at play though, because not only did he, of course, end up getting better, but during his lengthy hospital stay is where he received his very first drum set, which one can only assume is what led to his later superstardom. In our number 7 spot today, we have Dane Cook. Less of a secret and more of just a dark past, you may or may not know that the comedian Dane Cook was in a position where he had to take his own brother to court. Dane's brother Daryl served as Dane's manager from the early 1990s until 1998, and Dane later found out that during this time, Daryl and his wife had stolen about $12 million from Dane, of course without his knowledge. That's a huge amount of money, and it of course had Dane involving the authorities. In the end, Daryl pleaded guilty to larceny, embezzlement, and forgery among other charges. In addition to being required to pay back the millions of dollars that they stole, Daryl received a prison sentence of 6 years with 16-year probation, and his wife, who was also in on the whole fraud thing, received 3 years in prison and a 13-year probation. In our number 6 spot today, we have Stephen Colbert. One of America's favorite late-night TV hosts is Stephen Colbert. While covering current topics and conducting interviews, he brings a lot of joy and humor to his show, but this certainly doesn't mean that he hasn't had his fair share of struggles. A few years ago, after the tragic and shocking deaths of Kobe and Gianna Bryant that truly shocked the world, Stephen spoke on his show about a tragic loss that he himself had to endure early on in his life. His father and 2 of his older brothers were on Eastern Airlines Flight 212 when it crashed due to a pilot error in North Carolina on September 11, 1974. This would be an unimaginable loss for anybody. Stephen has since used this tragedy to fuel his comedy career, using the dark place he was in to bring joy to others. In our number 5 spot today, we have Jack Nance. So this one isn't like some of the others on this list, but the story really has just stuck with me ever since I heard it. Jack Nance was an actor best known for the series Twin Peaks. On December 29, 1996, Jack had lunch with a couple of friends and they noticed he had a bruise under his eye. When they asked him about it, he just said that he had gotten into it with someone outside of a donut shop and that he guessed he got what he deserved. Jack left the lunch complaining of a headache, and the next day he was found passed away in his home. It turns out his injuries had caused a subdural hematoma, which was his cause of death. This would mean that the fight he had gotten into was likely the cause of death in the end, whether accidental or not. It just makes me wonder who he got into a fight with, what it was over, and if that other person knows what happened after. In our number 4 spot today, we have Woody Harrelson. This is one that has less to do with the past of the actor and more to do with the past of his father, Charles Harrelson. While Woody has definitely played characters where he has been some sort of a person who took the lives of others, as it turns out, these characters could have been based off of his father, who is said to have been a high-level hitman who worked for different mobsters. Of course, as you would expect in a life like that, Charles is said to have been in and out of jail a lot during Woody's life growing up, but in 1979 he was sentenced to 2 life terms after it was found that he had allegedly been involved in the death of a judge after being hired by a drug dealer who would later go on to testify against him. In the early 90s, Charles attempted but was unsuccessful in trying to escape from prison, and in 2007 he passed away in jail from a heart attack. In our number 3 spot today, we have Matthew Broderick. This is a tragedy that took place quite a while ago, but it is something that definitely still lives with all of those who were involved. Back in 1987, Matthew was in Northern Ireland with his then girlfriend Jennifer Grey. Matthew was 25, he was a new rising star from the success of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and Jennifer herself was about to see quite the rise to fame with the upcoming release of Dirty Dancing. While the two were on this vacation, on one fateful day they were driving with Matthew at the wheel when they ended up colliding head-on with another car. Sadly, the 2 passengers in the other vehicle, 63-year-old Margaret Doherty and her daughter 28-year-old Anne Gallagher, both passed away as a result of the crash. While Matthew doesn't have any specific memories of the crash or really the day at all, he has explained that of course it has been difficult coming to terms with what happened. In our number 2 spot today, we have Trevor Noah. Trevor is a show host and comedian that many people enjoy, but life wasn't always as it seems to be now for the charismatic star. It turns out that Trevor, and more so his mother, endured some absolutely wild things earlier on in his life. It started when his mother remarried to a man who would later prove to be quite harmful to both of them. This only escalated to a new level in 2009 when Noah received news that this new husband ended up trying to take the life of his own mother by shooting her. She was hit once in the leg and once in the back of the head, but she was miraculously able to survive, which is truly unbelievable. It is no doubt why Noah speaks so highly of his mother. In an interview in 2016, he said, "I thought that I was the hero of my story, but in writing it I came to realize over time that my mom was the hero." He went on to say, quote, "I was lucky enough to be in the shadow of a giant." In our number 1 spot today, we have Allison Mack. On April 20th, 2018, the former Smallville star was arrested in Brooklyn for her part in a horrifying cult called NXIVM. You may have already heard about this cult before, but if not, between 1998 and 2018, this cult developed a following under the guise of some sort of personal development group. That truly is one of the worst parts of this cult, that most of the people who ended up being a part of it were really just setting out to better their own lives and somehow found themselves being manipulated by these evil people. Like I mentioned, this cult was a guise for horrible things that they were doing, and Allison worked to help recruit women who believed that they were joining a female mentorship group. In the end, Allison found herself sentenced to 3 years in prison, which many believe isn't a punishment that fully reflects the severity of her crimes. Alright guys, that has been our list for today. Thanks so much for checking it out. I've been your host today, Olivia Kozlowski, and I'll see you next time. Bye!